When I was a child, I was told that I could be anything I wanted. And for the most part, this has continued to hold true. I take AP courses. I'm a member of various clubs. I'm on this stage right now speaking to all of you, and I have high aspirations for my future. But what if I had been born somewhere else, where my access to education wasn't guaranteed, where my ability to own a business was restricted, or where I couldn't even open a bank account without a man's permission? This remains the sad reality for so many women across the globe. I want you to picture a woman from Equatorial Guinea. She wakes before sunrise, walking miles to retrieve water, and returning simply to cook for her family. But she's ambitious, she's smart, she's capable with ideas and an education and a brain that I see in so many of my peers. However, the difference is that her ideas remain just that. Ideas. Now, we have all heard about the issue of female exclusion and discrimination, and that it exists. But the fact of the matter is this issue is not only hurting our women, but the economy. For some context, 3 years ago when I was in the 7th grade, I know, I was adorable, right? I stepped foot in my first ever Model UN conference room at Harvard University. Model UN is basically a simulation of the United Nations where students are given countries and work with other nations to represent countries and solve international issues. And Model UN has also been the cause of my world completely changing. At that conference, I met a hijabi named Misk, who had made the trip of nearly 20 hours to get to this 4-day conference because she was in the search of a better life. She wanted to escape the issues plaguing her home country of Qatar, a small country in the Middle East, and have access to career opportunities that we see in the United States. I remember the first time I heard Misk speak. It was on the topic of women in the economy, and the passion that filled her voice shook me to my core. After the first session, I asked her about herself, and she told me. She told me about the discrimination that women faced on a daily basis in her country. She told me about the violence, where women were murdered simply for being women. She told me about how difficult it had been to pursue her education. She told me of her fear. These sentiments have stuck with me to this day. Because what do you mean a girl similar to me in capability was being discriminated against on a daily basis? A girl similar to me in capability had to fear for her life every time she stepped foot outside of the house. A girl similar to me in capability couldn't study or pursue the career that she desired, even though I had been told since I was a child that I could be anything I wanted. This conference was also the cause of my perspective completely shifting because I learned something different on that day. What would you say if I told you that the world's greatest untapped resource wasn't technology, a new oil reserve, or some undiscovered market, but a quite literal billion women in developing countries who have the capabilities to lead, to work, to innovate, who have so much to contribute to the industries in our economy, but are being held back? Estimates by the McKinsey Global Institute show that $28 trillion would be added to the global GDP, otherwise known as the gross domestic product, otherwise known as the total economic output of the world, if women were allowed to fully contribute to the economy. So why does this happen? Internationally, this primarily stems from the fact that women are restricted to the informal economy, which is outside of the scope of the formal economy, which is documented. It has protections. It has protections for its workers, restrictions, rules, and regulations that are not seen in the informal economy, which is why the informal economy is so often characterized by a lack of protection and the inevitable exploitation of these women. So going back to that number of $28 trillion, in this graph, the light green shows the current global GDP, while the dark green shows the amount that would be added if women were allowed and encouraged to fully contribute to the economy. So for a moment, let's take this from the perspective where it shouldn't just be about the women, but let's look at this objectively. For the pure sake of improving its economy, a nation would monetarily benefit from encouraging women to participate in the economy, from giving them these opportunities that we're seeing in the United States. Speaking of the United States, we could not talk about this issue internationally if we did not also look at it within our own country. We have made so much progress when it comes to this issue. We are at the forefront of women in the economy, but we are regressing. I am specifically talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Often, when we picture DEI programs, many people envision LGBTQ individuals as benefiting the most from them. But the truth is that the people who benefit the most from DEI programs are actually women. Women like me and so many of you. DEI has provided pay equity, incentives, and funds that have been such a large proprietor in getting women to the point that they are at within this country. It has provided pay equity, accessible work accommodations, and environments where women like me and so many of you can feel uplifted and can thrive. And if it is not you, it is your wives, your daughters, your sisters, your mothers, regardless of your political affiliation. Looking at this as separate from the politics and politicians associated with this issue, eliminating the empowerment of women is a move that will set us back. What can we do about it? I have one word for you, and that is policy. As individuals, you can advocate for policy change and support organizations that are making a difference when it comes to this issue. Especially in developing countries, we need policies that will enable women to pursue their educations and employment opportunities in the formal economy. Examples of these policies include ones that start with the children, such as increasing access to contraception. The Institute for Women's Policy Research showed that an increase in contraceptive access directly correlated to an increase in women's college enrollment rate. Additionally, a lack of affordable childcare is one of the largest barriers to women obtaining their education in developing countries. So we have to treat childcare as infrastructure, with as much care and attentiveness as we would roads or water. When we put these policies in place and once they are implemented, I believe we will also see a correspondence to less violence and discrimination based purely off of gender. We have to incentivize governments to take this issue seriously and act against it, if not for the women, for their own sake, for their economies. But by reframing and solving this issue as not just a human rights one, but an economic one, will also have a real impact on the women in these countries so that that woman from Equatorial Guinea can instead pursue her education, so that her ideas can materialize, so she can start a business, so she can contribute to the economy without fear of exploitation. In the modern world, the question has become not whether we can afford to empower women, but can we afford not to? Thank you.